In this Elden Ring Nightreign video, I'm going to be talking about some useful information on how to clear the Forsaken Hollows map a bit more effectively for those of you out there that are struggling either with the verticality of the map, or you're just having a hard time because you don't have the path memorized like you do in the base game because you just haven't played it that much yet. I'm going to be giving you some tips of things that I have found useful so far. So the very first tip that I'll give you, which might be obvious, is don't try to learn Scholar or don't try to learn Undertaker while playing the new map. It will slow down your progress immensely because the new map is harder, and trying to learn a new character while you're also learning a new map can be extremely difficult. So I would suggest if you're trying to learn the new classes, learn them in the base game instead, and then bring them over the map, or play your characters that you're more familiar with on the map itself. So kind of in order, the things that you're going to do, and I'm going to take this down to like a very basic level for you, those of you out there, but the first thing you want to do is obviously clear what's in front of you when you land and level up as quickly as possible. This is what you do in the base game, and it's absolutely necessary. Getting that to level 2 or level 3 quickly in order to have much more HP will prevent you from dying a lot of the time. And since the map is kind of a ring that you can kind of go around the outside and then in the middle-ish, the next thing you want to do is go to the closest point of interest on the left or the right, usually a ruins, like a poison ruins or a blood ruins. You're going to go left or right, head to that, clear it out, get the reward from doing it, and try and get yourself like a good weapon from that. And one of the things that you want to do while you're out exploring is you want to look for crystals as you explore. There's these big blue crystals all over the map, and they aren't marked on your map until day 2, but you absolutely want to do these on day 1 if you can, and that means looking around for them because they're not marked. So as you head to that thing and you are looking around, look for those blue crystals, go interact with them if you see them, and that should be probably your number 1 priority on day 1, is making sure you get those crystals as soon as you've gotten a couple levels as you're exploring. Once you've cleared the first ruins or point of interest, then you kind of want to head inward usually and try and get a church or 2. Obviously, you're going to keep looking for crystals while you do this, and crystals take priority, but keep doing churches in order to get yourself a couple flasks on day 1, because on day 2, you're really not going to worry about having to do churches at all, so do that. And also, while you're going to the churches, if you see any field bosses or like large packs of enemies you can wipe out quickly, you want to do them as long as they're things you feel like you can take on. Like, I wouldn't recommend taking on Deathrite Bird on day 1 if you're level 5 or something, but you get what I mean. Things that you wouldn't normally take on in the base game in day 1, you kind of skip and try and take anything else you feel comfortable with in order to gain some levels and some buffs and weapons. And while you're out exploring as well, you want to try and look for a steel chest. If you see the metal chests in any areas that you're at, these you absolutely want to open whenever you see them because they can drop you legendary weapons. They can also drop you passive buffs. So make sure you open any steel chests that you come across. The next thing I'll mention is that you want to avoid the tower on the left and the tower on the right side of the map on day 1. If you get too close to them, you'll actually kind of get this curse that lowers your maximum HP and makes it very easy for you to die. And you will come back to these on day 2, but on day 1, you absolutely want to avoid them while you're out exploring if possible. And then at the end of the first day, if you are fighting one of the bosses, and one of the bosses is the Curse Blade and Divine Beast Warrior, I highly recommend just having one person kite the Divine Beast Warrior around while 2 people gang up on Curse Blade. Curse Blade is much squishier, goes down more quickly, and then finish off Divine Beast Warrior afterward. So on day 2, you're going to finish off any of the blue crystals that you can find now that they're marked on the map if you didn't complete them on day 1, and you're going to get to the middle to get the buff that you get from them. Everyone needs to go there, so you can't send just one person, but make sure you all get this buff. It's going to make it so that you don't have the curse when you go into the towers, and you can go into them safely without having half of your health. So make sure you get this. And if in an ideal world, you would have this done on day 1, but it doesn't always happen that way. As you get better, it will happen on day 1. So on day 2, you want to do this really quickly, or if you had a good run and they're already done, you want to make for the nearest tower and try and get there and start making your way up to the top of the tower through the 3 boss fights. Note that if you are getting the buff here on day 2, there is a little jumpy spring behind the buff that will take you straight up into one of the towers really, really quickly, so you can get going on it ASAP. So once you get to the top of the tower, you're going to run over and grab the False Vision of a Great Ruin. This makes it so that your ultimate art will charge faster and you'll get bonus merc after your run. So make sure you get this. And if for some reason the Nightreign is coming in while you're like very, very close and you have to spend some time in the Nightreign, it's not the end of the world. Make sure you get this, because it's just really, really good to have and you want that bonus Merc. So usually by the time you're done with the tower, the Nightreign is closing in towards the center of, the last circle for your end of day 2 boss. So you'll have to head inward quickly, and you can kill any easy bosses remaining out in the field you see along the way. But you are going to have to get to that circle quickly, and make sure you leave time to get there. And another thing that's worth of note is that one of the arenas is like this circular area. You can actually, if you aren't in the right spot, you can, from the adjacent hill, like run up the hill and jump into it. Jump across a bit of a gap there and still get into it. So make sure you're aware of that so you don't get trapped in the Nightreign or fall off a cliff and die. And so then you're going to defeat the day 2 boss once you get there, hopefully, and then take on the Night Lord and hopefully defeat him. So that's pretty much like what you need to do during the first couple days. And just a couple other general tips that are things that I found helpful as well before we wrap up this video. If you see Libra on the map, which he will spawn periodically, and you go to him, he may have a physique that you can buy. If you buy that physique, or if you see that physique in his inventory, you'll know that Moog is going to be your end of day 2 boss, and you can use that to prevent his blood attack from, building bleed up on you 3 times in a row and healing himself. So this is really, really strong. If you see it, definitely maybe take a second to go get it if it's not too far out of the way. The next thing is that if you have a build like a Duchess build or an Executor build or even a Scholar build that relies on upgrading your starting weapon because you have multiple status effects and you want to keep that weapon to get like a duo or trio status effect build, you have to hit the caves on, I think it's the top and right side, top left side of the map, or the right side of the map and top of the map. And that can throw off the kind of timing of this run and makes those sort of builds a little more difficult to play in this area of the game. And I would recommend trying to set up those characters differently so that you don't have to go up there. Because keep in mind that if you're playing with randoms, they're probably going to be doing some variation of a run that I just told you, and they're not going to want to go off to a random part in a cave to get a purple stone most of the time. So try and set up your build in a way that doesn't rely on upgrading your starting weapon. Another general tip that I'd mention is that ultimate art gauge up when defeating enemies is really, really strong in this area of the game, and I would recommend everybody have it on their character if possible. It's not always possible because of your chalices and the way your relics are set up, but it's really, really strong, and there are just so many enemies compacted into this tiny bit of a space. It lets you use your ultimates much more frequently. You can use them way more often, allowing you to move more quickly through the landscape, get through boss fights more quickly, so that you can get more done in the limited time that you have. And lastly, you may get invaded by, or you may have an event trigger where the 3 Tricephaloses appear on your map. This can be very, very challenging, especially if this happens like the first time you're doing your run or second time, which happened to me. And this will deal continuous damage to you over time, so you really need to take care of this. But what I recommend doing, what I found very effective, is each person heading for 1 and taking out 1. They don't have high health pools. If you have a decently average player, they should be able to take 1 of these out on their own. If you have a player who's like a little bit weaker, you may want to go like 2 of you to 1 and then 2 of you to the next. But the ideal scenario is that you fan out immediately, each person taking 1 and then coming back together afterward to take on other objectives, because that's simply the fastest way to clear this and move on with your run. So that wraps up our beginner tips for the Forsaken Hollows. We are going to do some class guide videos moving forward. I'll have, I think, Undertaker tomorrow and Scholar the day after. We will be doing, I think, a new tier list for these characters that includes all the buffs and patches. I think you'll find that the tier list is a bit different than what our individual tier list was, so you'll be curious to see that. And if there are other guides out there that you guys want to see, you can let me know, or other content talking about the future of Nightreign, or if you guys have other tips to give players about like things that you found helpful, definitely leave them in the comments below so that they can make use of those and have smoother runs.